That's a loaded looking title. Should probably clarify what it means, shouldn't I? Yes, I know I'm a clickbait shill, and I don't care. So, I've had this video planned for about a month now. I had it all ready to be filmed, and then home problems, hence the different location now, which can't really accommodate what I had planned. So I guess I'm stuck doing this for a while, although even a bread tuber if you haven't filmed yourself in front of your setup at least once. Oh yeah, I'm not even a bread tuber, am I? Okay, about the title. This video is not a comprehensive deep dive into what we call the left. I may do that video one day, but the point of today's video is more of an optics push. If you've been anywhere outside of leftist circles, you probably realise that we're not very popular. At least not popular enough to win elections anyway. And maybe we should be? After all, what's not to like about leftist policies? They make the rich pay their way, give stability and prosperity to the poor, not to mention save the planet. You know, the one we all live on and need to survive. But you can't ignore the fact that the two most prominent peddlers of lefty ideas were democratically defeated over the last couple of years. And I won't get into why in this video, because frankly, I don't want it to be hours long, but I do want to remedy that a bit. You see, when I talk politics with people who voted Conservative in the last general election, I often find that we agree on a lot of stuff. Leftist ideas and policies are popular, but a big part of the reason I think that leftist parties and ideologues aren't is because of how we consume discourse as a society. Yeah, I know, lefty cliche, blame the media. It's a bit more complex, though, than just media conglomerates hate socialism, because of course they do. The critique I'm getting at applies to everyone, and it goes like this. Think to yourself, how do you consume discourse? You're watching a video essay right now, so this is probably part of it, right? We always put our sources in the description, but how many of you actually read them? Or do you just take our word for it? And this isn't a failing, it's just human nature. If you're not interested enough, why should you be? You've watched the pretty leftist YouTuber, you know your stuff, it's fine. Seriously, it's not a problem, but we do need to be honest about it. Because remember, most people don't watch BreadTube. They watch mainstream news outlets and read newspapers, and most of those are pretty right-leaning in nature, or at least pro-status quo. And it's not just about bias or slander, even though it definitely could be. My critique is more like, these outlets will never bring leftism or politics in general up. They'll talk about immigration issues, they'll talk about sports and crime, and obviously right now So when it comes to polling day, which issues do you think people are going to place their ballots over? The stuff they heard about? Or the stuff, let's be honest, they probably didn't? Hint, it's the first one. So in this video, I'm going to talk about political, society, issues, stuff that leftists talk about. Basically, you're going to hear lefty perspectives from an actual leftist instead of the weirdo strawman version of leftism that you hear in the Ben Shapiro classics. I divided it all into 7 categories, which you'll find chaptered in the description. It's all going to be mostly surface level stuff, but the goal of today isn't to talk specifics. It's mainly just starting discussions on these things that mainstream media just tends to miss. I'm shifting the Overton window to the left. Oh, but hang on. Not like this. Oh yeah, this is still a video essay. Style is very important. I might not have my bag of tricks right now, but I'm not putting my thoughts on YouTube without at least some coloured lights and a smug sense of self-important intellectual superiority. And some of this. I'm an adult, I must drink the paint thinner. Oh, one more thing before we continue. You might be right-wing and politically lucid coming into this video, or whatever. But no matter what I say today, you can disagree with me if you want. I mean, please don't, because I'm right. But, you know, you do you. As long as you start talking about these issues and considering them, I've done my job today. So, shall we do this? Money, money, money. Oh, gods. No!
Money, 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 must be funny in the rich man's world.
It's like Beetlejuice, you say it and it just appears. It's safe to say that money is something we all get, right? It's how we organise and negotiate resources as a society. But the thing is, come here. It's not real. Okay, that's not strictly true. Money is real, but only because we invented it. And because we invented it, we must also have invented the rules that go with it, right? Which means we can reinvent them. So in this part, I'm going to argue two things. The rich need less, and the poor need more. We'll start with the billionaires, where I believe in one general principle. They shouldn't exist. Nobody needs to or should be in control of an amount of wealth that causes calculators to revert to standard form. You can't feasibly spend it on things that hedonistically enrich your life. Hello, you lovely people. Thought I'd bring this classic little background back just to add a bit of post-mortem editorial nonsense. Because I realise that there are a lot of things I gloss over here when I make this point about the fact you can't feasibly spend £1 billion. So obviously with things like investments and donations, there is no upper limit to what you can spend. I get that, don't you worry. But what I'm referring to here is mostly products that make the happy juice in the brain, you know, like big shiny yacht, fancy dinners, that sort of thing. Spending £1 billion on that stuff is like impossible. You could get the most expensive of everything and you're still looking at having a shit ton left over. And obviously I'm talking about wealth distribution here, so as lovely as it would be to see philanthropy from billionaires, it still feels a bit incorrect to give the decision to them, whereas we could democratically tax it away from them and then be less reliant on things like charities and foundations and whatnot for funding to combat problems and stuff. So yeah, I felt like I kind of missed a couple of steps in this point, possibly because I was trying to edit it down a lot because the money section is probably the longest section. I don't know yet, but it feels like it was the longest one. And yeah, I realized that I missed a big chunk of thought process and connecting cables there in that machine of ideology there, so sorry about that. I hope this little bit clears it up. Back to the video. And most of us here in the gutter know that you can live a fulfilling and comfortable life on a number 10 or even 20,000 times smaller than that amount. So I think when someone amasses a large amount of wealth, say £100 million to keep them happy, we should be taxing the surplus above that into public ownership, either by taking a hefty percentage of it or introducing a wealth cap and taking all of it. But hang on, they earned their money. That's theft. I knew you'd say that. And I disagree. If you have an idea, a good or even great idea, I'm not going to argue that you shouldn't earn wealth off of it. Imagine where us musicians would be without intellectual property. But to get an enterprise to the level of Amazon, come on, Jeffrey needs a bit of help, right? He doesn't drive the trucks, he doesn't package up the orders. I mean, truth be told, he doesn't really do anything except dodging his taxes and getting ejaculated into the sky.
What's that? Well, it looks like a giant...
Johnson. Yes, sir.
So, apart from the initial idea and the subsequent setting up of the business, did the billionaires earn their wealth? Because I'm inclined to think not. It's only because of how we manage ownership that we allow Jeffrey to keep his money, but like I said, these are man-made rules, so therefore as men, we could change them, right? You might think this is just about wages, and that's part of it, of course, like pay rises are about as rare as a conservative politician facing any meaningful repercussions. Don't even get me fucking started. Whereas the cost of living seems to always be increasing. Like, at time of recording, we're currently in the midst of a fuck-off fuel price hike, and I'm sat here like, why is it so fucking hard for the rich to take the hit instead of the people who can't bloody afford it? Like, if money is so important, why do most of us get barely any of it compared to the amount we're expected to shell out? Oh my god, if you're unhappy, just get a better job. Really? That's your solution? All of the jobs still need doing. You're just gonna kick the can down the road? Fact is, all jobs should be paying enough in line with inflation for people to live. Not just survive, but live. Which, is currently a point of contention in of itself. But anyway, I digress. Whilst wages are important, and billionaire businesses should definitely be paying more of them, I'd still like to sidestep that point and say that either way, it's morally required for wealthy billionaires to pay taxes and sacrifice their wealth that they don't need and won't use to fund services like single-payer healthcare, welfare, and social housing. Because it's not enough to just pay your workers more than a pittance. They're literally the lifeblood of your business, so fucking look after them. And I'm not finished there, because there's another point that I don't think I've ever heard anyone make before, but I think is still valid. You see, billionaires owe their workers a debt of gratitude, not just recompense for their labour, of course. But you know who else they owe a debt? Us, the consumers. What? Think about it. A large part of why these multi-billion-pound businesses got to where they are today is because we gave them our money. You know, we got products and services in return, but we could have gone elsewhere. You know, we could have just not spent that money and invested it into ourselves instead. So it's really us, the consumers, that fund the billionaire lifestyle. So if you think about it, we have the power. Or, you know, we should. The way we talk about business and finance and the free market is pretty dehumanizing to us consumers. You know, we get viewed as statistics and capital, a well from which to plunder money. But that's not true. We're real people who don't have much wealth to part ways with for the benefit of these companies, but we still do it. And if our wealth went away because, you know, we ran out or we starved, the value of businesses like Amazon would dwindle a little, wouldn't it? Which is why I think that in the interest of maintaining their businesses, billionaires not only morally should, but functionally must pay their workers more and pay their taxes to help fund free-to-use public services that help the people they rely on to live. So there you go, something to think about. Okay, totally not going to spend too long on this one because, as you probably know, there's already a butt ton of climate videos here on youtube.gov. And whilst I should do my bit, there really isn't much I can add to... But let's have a go anyway. 99% of all climate scientists are telling us that the Earth is heating up, and yet, somehow, our elected officials are hell-bent on doing basically nothing to combat the problem. And you've heard all this before, right? The ice sheets are melting, the planet's heating up, the world's on fire, and everything is bad. But this hasn't been enough to convince everyone. So today, I'd like to try a different tactic. Sucker punch! I'm not talking about heat death today, I'm talking about industry and jobs. Because it's true that if we pursued this very necessary dismantling of fossil fuel extraction and energy production, that a lot of jobs would disappear. And whilst green energy production would produce as many, if not more, jobs to replace them, it does seem like a bit of an unnecessary headache if you're unconvinced that the planet needs this to avoid the inevitable heat death of life as we know it. Which is why I'm here to tell you that even if you don't think the climate's fucked, you should still be pushing for us to move to exclusively green energy production. I keep saying green, what am I like? I meant to say renewable, because Oh yeah, even if you don't think using coal, oil and gas to create energy is shitting continent-sized amounts of carbon into the atmosphere and cooking us all like last night's curry, it still ain't gonna last forever. In fact, we might only have until as soon as 2050 to phase out all oil usage, because if we don't find more reserves and soon, that's all we have. So, all those jobs, they're going whether you believe the science or not, which means that now is the time to start investing in renewable energy sources, things like wind, hydroelectric, and solar. So, get pressuring, vote green, or you might want to start writing a eulogy to cars, life support machines, and the internet. And that's it. Oh, no, wait, there is one more thing. CO2 isn't the only gas that's causing the planet to warm. Turns out that methane, which is created by all those farms we use for food production, is just as bad. And with that considered, I want to show you guys this. This is not free advertising. This is a McPlant. And despite what you might think, it's actually very tasty. Although, pro tip, if you are going to get one, get it without sauce. They put way too much sauce on it. It's gorgeous without sauce. The point I want to make is that I think we should all be embracing a more vegan diet. Like, not entirely, mind, but I just think we should be cutting down on beef and other meat products a lot, just to reduce methane emissions. We can do this with plants now, so why not? If we ate less beef, we'd need less cows, which means less methane, and we'd be growing more plants to make this, which means less CO2. I don't know. We could all welcome more of this into our diet. I don't think anything bad would happen. Like, no, McDonald's could probably just replace all of their beef products with it, and I genuinely don't think anyone would notice. But that's my closing point. I don't think we all need to be vegans, per se, just that we need to be eating a lot more of this and less of the methane-producing meat. Roll the next bit while I finish this. Here's a radical statement for you. Work. What is the fucking point? It's generally assumed today that work is. If you're an adult, you better either get a job or start a business. No arguments, it's what we do. But should it be? I'm not the first to think otherwise, but I am going to make my plug for fully automated luxury gay space communism today. Just try and stop me. It seems odd to me, given that we apparently live in the free world, that most of us tend to spend most of our lives working. Not only that, but we barely ever question it. We moan about it all the bloody time. We're constantly droning on about how much we hate Mondays, how expensive bills are, how long until the weekend, thank fuck it's Friday. If it is that bad, and it is, should we maybe do something about it? Let's get one thing clear before I get too fully invested. I do get it. We live in a society, and to keep that running, we have to do some work. I've heard all the rebuttals, working so we can afford things. Just hear me out, okay? I promise it's not totally crazy. As unbelievable as it sounds, this is not my full-time job. I know. It's true. Guilty as charged. Oh, I cannot keep a straight face. The work that actually keeps me afloat is a full-time job I work as a technician.
Technician was the lowest rank on this ship. The man who changed the bog rolls was higher than us.
And it's alright. It's not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, but it's not particularly uncomfortable or dangerous. I work with lovely friends and colleagues, and there's staff football every Friday. It could be a lot worse. The main sticking point for me is how time-consuming it is. Because after the 8 hours of work, plus the home maintenance like cooking, cleaning, washing and sleeping, I often find that I don't have much time at all left in the day for me. And that's not to mention all of the time spent on the commute and the necessary food shopping.
The time spent contemplating the futility of the human condition.
And it wouldn't be so bad if I enjoyed my job more, like in a lot of cases where people find the dream job. And if you have, power to you, but it's not that simple for everyone. If you're like me and your passion lies in art, creation, writing books, recording albums, filming yourself like a fucking nerd, it can feel suffocating sometimes, trying to remain financially stable whilst pursuing your goals. Because aside from the lack of time, filling the spare hours with more work will burn you out very quickly. And creative passions like ours aren't exactly simple careers to live off straight away. So, what is the solution then? Well, there are a few.
Work part-time.
I'm getting there, though right now that's not possible because most of us can't afford to.
So, get a better job?
Ugh, you're like a broken record. Remember earlier? Can Road? Oh, can't hear me again, eh? In my opinion, the problems are skin deep. We expect and are expected to work as much as we do, which means we never question it, despite the fact that most of us think, this is shit. So we need to move away from this mindset, this metaphysical monopoly work has over us. Then we can start to talk about actual solutions like reducing the work week to 4 or even 3 days, or making it financially viable for more people to work fewer hours. Because ideas like this get floated occasionally, and the usual resistance to or dismissal of them is centralised on wages. So obviously we would need a restructuring of payment or a dramatic reduction in the cost of living to offset lost working hours. And if you don't like those solutions, because admittedly, yeah, that would require a lot of administrative overhaul, how about universal basic income? You know, we could implement a system where people get paid, which would allow them to soften their reliance on work hours for financial stability.
Hang on, so you're saying pay people more to do less?
No, I'm saying that we should be reducing the amount of work people have to do without impacting their finances.
So, where's the incentive to work then? It's not very productive, is it?
Well, personally, I don't think human happiness is worth productivity, and I actually have a big problem with that question. Saying where's the incentive to work is a tacit admission that we exploit basic human needs for labour. As for productivity, I think it's a callous and shitty assumption that people would just be lazy if they weren't incentivized to work. Like, if you're anything like me, yeah, you'd be lazy for a bit, but after a couple of weeks of rest, you'd get bored, get off your ass and make something. Plus, being lazy is good, actually. Like, what's the point in all this progress and innovation if we can't at some point kick back, relax, and admire what we've done as a species? Like, if there's no conclusion to all this graft, what is the point? Being lazy makes people happy? I think they should be. Despite all the celebration capitalism gets for innovation and productivity, I think humans are more productive when they're freer to focus on what they care about. You know, instead of working to live, we'd be able to live to work on what truly drives us. And instead of getting burnt out on all the long hours, I think we'd all be happier and more innovative if we all worked a little less.
I am somehow less interested in the weight and convolutions of Einstein's brain than in the near certainty that people of equal talent have lived and died in cotton fields and sweatshops.
Right, this is the SJW section, so you are gonna shut up, okay? Are you putting in headphones? Seriously, you're just gonna ignore me? Forget it. I suppose it was kind of obvious there'd be a section like this in a video about leftism. And you're probably expecting me to do the whole trans rights are human rights, reparations need to happen, neurodivergence awareness thing. And I believe in that stuff, of course, but that's very trodden ground, so today I want to tackle social justice a little bit differently. Bigotry is bad, and bigoted dog whistles, turf rhetoric, etc. should be challenged at all times, yes. But where I see us needing to make the greatest amount of progress in the name of social justice is understanding how the very structures and systems that compose our society come into tension with those who don't fit the mould of the archetypal white, straight, cis male norm. That was wordy, let's elaborate. In the West, our society has been historically crafted by rich, powerful, aristocratic white men. That's a fact. And the thing is, our society has been built to suit their needs. There's nothing intrinsically malicious about this. I mean, au contraire, I just think it's human to care about what you care about. The problem lies in the resistance to include. Because of reasons, allowing for marginalised communities to thrive under these systems and structures has been troublesome. It's not just bigotry and hatred that cause the tension, though. Several seemingly benign systems can also exclude deviations from the norm. Take marriage, for example, and how, up until very recently, it was incompatible with anyone who wasn't straight or cis. Or maybe how loud, bright, crowded city centres are problematic for people who experience sensory overload. By now, you should know my feelings towards society. It is man-made. We could rebuild these structures to include different sexualities, genders, races, cultures, and neurodivergence. But we haven't. Well, not completely anyway. We've made a start, but we need to continue. And you may ask, how? The answer is to ask these communities, what doesn't work? How do we correct it? Crazy, right? I kid, but I feel this needs to be stated, because too often I see people kinda sidestep marginalised perspectives because we're just too focused on our own. Again, that's just a pretty human thing to do. I've done it, but that's why messages like this need to exist, to remind people
this isn't about you.
And this sidestepping doesn't just happen in bad ways either, like when someone might shout down a black perspective on policing in the US. But we can be pretty prone to doing this on the left too. Like, we might get totally involved in solutions and discourse that we feel would benefit marginalised communities and completely forget to include their voices in the process. It's important that I mention this because, realistically, a lot of these systemic problems are going to require a massive societal upheaval to solve. And whilst the current power structures could do it if they had the mind to, I wouldn't want them to unless I was certain that they'd include and directly involve marginalised perspectives. So, if I can boil the point of this section down, it isn't enough anymore to be tolerant. True inclusivity means to include. We have to understand that the world has been created unequally and accept that marginalised communities have had very different experiences that shape very different perspectives on their own oppression. And we can't just ignore them or think we know better. And instead of using our privilege to speak on their behalf, we should be reaching across the aisle and holding our megaphones to their mouths. We have to listen, we have to empathise, we have to be completely open-minded, because it's not about being colour-blind, it's about being colourful. You're doing an amazing job. So, I need to pause before I do this section because I work in education and some of my friends and colleagues might be watching this bit. I am about to be critical of our education system, but this does not mean that I'm going to slate teachers or any of the work they do. In fact, to be honest, I've got nothing but admiration for teachers and school staff. Like, I've tried your job and it's fucking hard, but over the last 4 years, I've had the privilege of watching you all do some amazing things. So I hope that none of what I'm about to say today sounds like I'm dissing you.
Hello, me again. So, this section I'm actually kind of self-conscious about, because the other sections are more source-based, like the stuff that I've read up about or I've watched videos on or, forensically dug into. This section, though, is not really that, and I didn't really make this clear. I feel like I should have probably made a little paragraph on this when I was filming. A lot of what I'm about to say about education comes from mostly anecdotal or, I suppose, experience-based evidence, if you can call it that. Because I've been in education my entire life. I started school at 3. I stayed in school until I was 18 and then went straight to university until I was 21. And then I went and taught and did work in schools and, well, until now, like when I'm a technician, been one for 4 years. So yeah, a lot of this is just based off of my experiences, and my opinions that I've formed aren't necessarily backed up by sources or consensus amongst academics. Like, it's literally just, here's what I've observed from my vast experience of being in this sector, and here's what I think should be done differently. That's what I wanted to say, is that this one is definitely more of an opinion. The entire video is an opinion, but the other sections at least have sources to back them up. In fact, there's a lot more than I thought they would be, given the nature of the video. So yeah, I hope you guys aren't too put off by the fact this is more opinion than the rest. And yeah, I guess I'll just let myself get on with it.
Let's begin then. Education is one big wasted opportunity. Similar to the idea that work is a societal expectation, so too is education. And I'm not against that idea in principle. I think it's good that we expect children to learn stuff from the get-go. But what are we teaching them? When I left school, it was almost immediately clear to me that there was a lot of stuff I didn't know how to do as an adult. I had zero clue about buying or insuring a car. I had no idea how to buy a house, about bank accounts, our political organisation, just, important life stuff that you need to function in society. And that's just the utilitarian stuff. We were also never taught social aspects of being an adult. Things like sex, consent, bigotry, bias, misinformation, responsibility. The common rebuttal to the point I'm making is that you're supposed to learn that stuff at home. Which, yeah, I'd agree that some responsibility falls at the parents' feet, but not all children have access to that kind of support. Which is why I referred to education as a wasted opportunity, because we could be preparing children to comfortably function in the outside world, giving them great financial, social, and political awareness. But instead, we spend the overwhelming majority of the 15 years they spend in education teaching them academia. And academia is great, obviously. Like, all of the subjects we currently teach are things we should continue to teach. They're exciting, they're interesting, they curate passion and opportunity. But a few of them dominate the curriculum, subjects we call core subjects. And I'd like to ask, why? I'd agree that we should be taught a functional level of maths, English, and IT, but a lot of employers and higher education want you to have full-on qualifications in the former two, which I don't get. Like, being able to add and subtract and articulate your language is important, of course, but a full-on qualification? Like, have you seen these prospectuses? If we let go of the concept of core subjects and replaced their presence in society with functional equivalents, we'd be able to reduce the teaching hours required for them and free up more time in the week for life lessons instead of the paltry 1 hour a fortnight you might get today. And I truly don't think anyone will be adversely affected by not understanding things like simultaneous equations and trigonometry, but if students wanted to, they could study maths and English like any other non-core optional subject. Like with work, I'm all about maximising happiness with the precious little time we get. And education's kinda like work, if you think about it. It's a mandated service to the state. And sadly, that's kind of the goal of our education system right now, isn't it? You know, make sure you get the grades so you can get a job. But, why can't we just learn for learning's sake? Like, we're so fucking focused on results as the be-all and end-all of school that it feels like we've forgotten that the point is to learn. It should be about broadening our minds, not passing our exams. Like, we waste so much time preparing for those fucking things, which is why I think they should go. If you want to monitor progress, exams ain't it. They get so much importance centered on them, but they're exclusionary, they're stressful, they're hopelessly exploitable as an assessment method. As a way of checking someone's suitability for a role, there has to be something better. And I'm not a test method maker, but my immediate discussion prompting solution is to establish a set of key criteria, okay, that students must fulfill over the year or two they study the subject. And these could be anything, and you assign a grade based on how much they do. Thoughts in the comments, please. I'm actually genuinely interested to hear the opinions of teachers on this one.
Told you I was self-conscious about this one. So I think I missed some steps here, and I'm going to jump in just to quickly say, have some mercy about this take. Like, it's very utopian and kind of misses out on some of the key problems teachers are facing about class sizes and levels of bureaucracy. Like, I think reducing that first is a much more reasonable goal rather than just completely revolutionizing the way we assess students' suitability for roles and jobs and whatnot. Looking back on the section, it's probably the most difficult to write because there are so many things I think could be better with education. And trying to cram it all into this one small section of a very multifaceted video is just, what do you say? So I think I subconsciously must have picked the most utopian of thought processes because it feels like the most likely to spark some opinion and provoke some debate and discussion. So I mean, ironically, that might make it the best section of the video, I don't know. And I want to say to teachers and school staff, please do leave your thoughts in the comments section about problems and solutions surrounding education, because your opinions and observations are absolutely the most qualified. I am kind of out of my depth here. Please do not get too hung up on debunking my ideas. Like, honestly, the best solution to a bad idea, if you think I'm full of shit, is a better one. This is how progress is done.
So much more I could say about education. Another time though. Next section starting in 3, 2... It should be free. If you're impatient, you probably already commented about this section, because at the start I mentioned that left-leaning ideas are popular, but leftist parties don't seem to be getting anywhere. And this disparity is greatly caused by our voting system. This section isn't just me being upset that I didn't get what I want, because truth be told, if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd still feel the same. Because the fact is, we live under a system that doesn't really generate the will of the people. When Jeremy Corbyn was defeated in 2019, the main right-leaning parties received about 45% of the popular vote, whereas opposition to these policy platforms received over 50%. And I've been very careful about how I've worded that. You'll see why. Democracy is as much about what you don't want as it is about what you want, in my opinion. Like, you might, for example, not particularly want to vote for the Labour Party. Can't imagine why. But if it keeps the Tories out, well, for some that might just be enough to sway you. The problem with the current first-past-the-post voting system we have is that it often forces us to choose between voting for what we want and against what we don't. Do you compromise your choice, or do you aid your opponent? What if you didn't have to do either? I'm not going to explain the alternative vote here, just go watch any video about it, but I am going to throw my support behind it as a voting system, because you get the opportunity to vote for who you want, with the fallback of pitting a vote against who you don't, if your primary choice is unsuccessful. And even beyond the idea of votes, I feel that the alternative vote, or a system like it, is required for a healthy democracy. In fact, I don't think I'd even use the word democracy to describe the system we currently have. Think about it, your choice is relegated to either siding with the frontrunner or against them, which usually means voting for the party most likely to defeat them. Which means that anyone who aligns themselves with a third, fourth, or fifth party option essentially wastes their vote in most cases. So if the only way you'll have your voice heard is to pick one of any two given parties, is that democracy? It's not surprising that voter turnout is so low compared to the population demographic. I mean, any nuance, any differing opinion, it just doesn't matter. God forbid we wind up with the two front-running parties being essentially politically very similar. Fuck. But I think if we adopted the alternative vote, or hell, any proportional system, we'd see a greater diversity of thought, because not only would it be easier to get fringe parties into the spotlight, if you had the comfort of knowing that you could keep the parties you don't like out, you'd be a lot more motivated to vote third-party options, and therefore a lot more politically fulfilled and more likely to vote.
Are you still going on?
Welcome back to the world of the living. As a matter of fact, I was just about to finish.
Are you just talking about the alternative vote? So you're okay with basically nothing getting done ever again?
Well, whilst it's true a traditional parliament would be harder to form,
Which is terrible because we need a leader.
see, I disagree. We're a community, not an army. Why do we need a leader? As long as the will of the people is carried out, does it matter if it's because of one party or the entire parliament?
But they never will.
They'd kinda have to. It might even make them do their jobs better. Any system that makes it harder to establish a parliament is only going to make all of the parties try and develop better policies and work on actually implementing them, because the second they don't, it's going to be so much easier to just get rid of them. How's that for a free market solution? And anyway, that's besides the point. Democracy is about having our voices heard. But right now, too many of our voices just don't get a fair say. And if getting things done is your priority, ask yourself, is it worth it to sacrifice people's values and beliefs? I don't think so. In my opinion, it matters less how much we do than making sure what we do represents what people want. Quality over quantity? Sure, I think that sums this section up quite well. Happy? It's all done now.
God, yes. Thought that was never going to end.
There's never any pleasing you, is there? Well, it was all preachy. Like, we get it, you want us all to embrace leftism. No, that wasn't... Did you listen to anything I said? I got the gist. You hate rich people, you hate oil companies, you hate work. See, this is exactly why I made this video. Ugh. You're lucky I can't send you to your room right now. Alright, you say you want to start discussions, but I bet the second I disagree, you'll just bite my head off and cancel me. No, not at all. Disagreement's fine. It's one of the best ways to challenge our perspectives. So, hang on. You're saying that I can go in your comment section right now and disagree? If you want, yeah, but please do keep it clean. Be open to people debating you back, and don't worry if you find your perspective changing a little. Which bits do you think you disagreed with then?
Dunno, wasn't paying attention really.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, at the very least, I hope you guys watching at home picked up some new perspectives today. And you don't have to agree with them, but I just want you to be aware that they exist, and that sometimes we can ask for change to the unchangeable. Leave a comment and let me know if you think I missed anything or if I got anything wrong, but do remember that this was a very surface level introduction to these concepts. I could and maybe will make longer, more in-depth videos about this stuff one day, but I'll also link you to some better creators than me in the description for some more nuanced stuff. And that's it. Oh, no, wait, there is one more thing. This video is sponsored by fucking nothing. Look at my subscriber count. Are you kidding? In my last video, about 3 months ago, I said some stuff. Nothing bad, this isn't an apology. I said that I wanted this to be my main source of content, because if you're new here, you may have noticed that this channel has been predominantly a gaming channel for the last 12 years. And I will be cutting down on all that. However, I'm a completionist, so I just wanted to warn you, if you do want to subscribe, that there will still be some non-video essay videos going up for a bit. I still have some songs that I want to cover, and honestly, I'm so close to completing a behemoth Let's Play of Dragon Quest VIII, so yeah, those will be going up. But that doesn't mean there'll be no essays. I fully intend to bring more of these out. After all, I did say that I want this to be my main content source. Like, I'm having fun doing it, I'm doing some discourse, and honestly, once all the other stuff I want to get out is up, it's incredibly likely that this is exclusively what you're gonna get around here. So yeah, that's all I needed to say. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all some other time. Take care.